You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
For you Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I once again brought along someone special, Robert Richardson, my father. He's helped me get through lots of losses. He's also encouraged me when Auburn, when I was in college, Auburn had in 2012, that rough season. Many times helped me get through that. And you know what? We got to go to the national championship game the next year. And I don't think we're anywhere like that right now. I don't think so. But it's good to have you on, Dad. How you doing?
Glad to be here. It's always glad to be able to spend time with our son and talk a little Auburn football, especially when it's Iron Bowl week.
Yeah, Iron Bowl week is fun. We've got to experience a lot of big ones in Jordan-Hare, but I think the one that really sticks out in my mind, I think one of the most fun ones we went to was the one in 2010, the comeback in Tuscaloosa. We got tickets for it. I don't know how you got them, Dad, but I'm very thankful you did. And we got to go see Cam make that ridiculous comeback and Auburn, make it, complete their perfect season that year. But I wanted to, just recollect on that. What do you remember from that fun game in 2010?
Well, we had great seats. It was kind of the flip side of what Auburn has experienced the last three games. That the comeback game in 2010 in Tuscaloosa was, we got down big time, scored around halftime, and the second half comeback was nothing short of monumental.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a great memory to spend with you and the family, and spurred us on to a national championship. So
yeah,
great memories, and we're going to do some more of that in the future.
Oh yeah, definitely. Any kind of overall thoughts about this Iron Bowl that we're about to face off? The Iron Bowl is going to be at 2:30, CBS in Jordan-Hare. Kind of any overall thoughts about this game? We're on a 3-game losing streak. Not a great way to go into an Iron Bowl, but if we at Jordan-Hare have some magic that could potentially happen. I'm not saying it will, but magic can happen in Jordan-Hare. What's kind of your thoughts on Auburn?
Sure would love for some of that Jordan-Hare Stadium magic to happen again. Auburn has won the 3 out of the last 4 at Jordan-Hare, and it would be great if we could pull out some magic, and I think it's going to take it. Find a way to finish strong, but some great memories of Iron Bowls, from Legion Field to Auburn, and being at the comeback in Tuscaloosa was very, very special.
Yeah.
But remembering back to 2019 when we won the shootout 48-45.
That was awesome.
2017 when we just coming off beating number 1 Georgia, we're facing number 1 Alabama. We beat the Tide 26-14 in 2017. So we will look forward to hopefully keeping that home field streak alive.
Yeah. I mean, us winning the last 3 of the 4 Iron Bowls in Jordan-Hare, and that's, against one of the best head football coaches maybe ever. And that's a pretty cool stat there that we, over the last, handful of years have done pretty well in Jordan-Hare. And this year we're going to have to do it without our starting quarterback, normal starting quarterback, Bo Nix. TJ Finley is going to be our starting quarterback for this game. Bama starts out, at least right now when we're recording this, as a 19.5 point favorite. Not a huge shocker. I feel like Bama is usually favored in most games. But I mean, I think if anything, Auburn, has a few special plays up their sleeve. I mean, it's like, previous years under Gus, we save a few special plays for these big rivalry type games. And I hope we pull out a few of them, execute well, and perform like I know we can. And I think I don't know, maybe my frustration this year is knowing we have the capability, we have the talent level to play well, and yet we're just not doing it. And I think that's been, I feel like, the first few games, first 6 or so games, we had our issues, but we at least won some of those. And then the last 3 games have been rough, very rough to watch. But I did want to get your thoughts, Dad, on kind of the key players for Bama. What's kind of your scouting report? Let's start with Bryce Young, and what do you think of him?
Bryce Young, to me, is very impressive now. Having gone to a lot of Auburn games this year, I haven't seen a lot of complete Alabama games. Maybe saw a good bit of the LSU game, the A&M game out there, and then Arkansas this past week. Watched a good bit of it. That certainly show that Bama is beatable, particularly in those 3. But Bryce Young is extremely impressive, especially when he has protection, which his offensive line gives him great protection. He is a cool character back there, completing 75% of his passes, which is really strong. 38 touchdowns against only 3 interceptions. And particularly in games they've played in November, he's 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Wow.
Which is, he had a very 559 passing yards against Arkansas this past Saturday, which I believe set a single game Alabama record. While Alabama didn't run the ball great, maybe Arkansas forced Bryce Young into throwing the ball a lot, but when he did, 559 yards. So that speaks well of him. Other than maybe C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, could be the most impressive quarterback as far as performance this year.
Yeah, Bryce Young has been quite impressive. I've seen, I think the biggest weakness in my mind of Bryce is when there's pressure on him. When he's rolling around, gets outside of the pocket, he seems to be a little bit different of a quarterback. He's got the legs if he needs to run. He's not, I feel like that's not usually his tendency. But he's not as accurate when he's rolling out of the pocket, which I think most quarterbacks aren't. But I think Bryce Young, he has his issues there. So if you can get Bryce Young uncomfortable like that, and say a guy like Eku Leota or TD Moultrie, gets a good pass rush on Bryce Young, I think that's how you can maybe force him to make some passes he might not have otherwise.
Got to get pressure on him this week somehow, and our guys showed the last couple of weeks they can make that happen. So we just got to step it up to the next level. Yeah,
definitely agree with that. Bama's leading wide receiver is Jameson Williams. He has a quite impressive 1,218 yards, 13 touchdowns, and only on 59 receptions. He's been a guy that's, getting around 5 completions a game and, making work of that, doing a great job of getting first downs and touchdowns. And we got to, definitely put a guy on him. I don't know if we end up putting like Roger McCreary on him and just saying, stick with him. But another threat in the wide receiver room for Bama is John Mechie. He was far down or not far down. He was, pretty far behind, the Waddles of the world. And you got some really, prolific wide receivers that just came out of Bama, and now Mechie is kind of, rising in his ranks up in the wide receiver room for Bama. So they definitely have their wide receiver threats out there. As far as running backs go, Brian Robinson, he's a pretty solid back for them. He's got pretty similar numbers to Tank Bigsby, 945 yards, 14 touchdowns, doing a pretty good job on the ground. We definitely can't keep our eye, and we've got to keep our eye on him, because if we don't contain him, he's a very capable guy, and he'll be able to run over you if he needs to.
He's a bruiser. He's not as much of a a speed back as some teams have, but Brian Robinson averages about 5 yards a carry, which is strong.
That's strong.
You can hand it off and play that game, which Bama tends to do in the second half. Even more impressive, he has almost 7 yards per carry in the games that Alabama's played in November.
Man.
So against SEC competition, averaging 7 yards a carry is really strong.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like, you got to respect him, and also the wide receivers, which, I mean, defense is going to have their hands full with this Alabama offense. Even though, I'd say Alabama's offense isn't as up to like what I think Alabama fans expected. But I mean, they're still putting up points on the scoreboard. They're doing things that they should. It's just, I don't think it's in the way Bama is used to doing it. And hey, it's still working for them. I mean, obviously they're 10-1 at this point. They're winning games. Now some of those have been really close, a lot closer, I feel like, this season than most people would have expected. I mean, the loss to Texas A&M kind of, middle of their season, definitely shocked a lot of people. There were games like Alabama at Florida. Only Alabama squeaked that one out by only 2 points in the second game or third game of their season. Games like that, I mean, now looking back on it, you're thinking Florida just, fired Dan Mullen. That's that just seems crazy to me that Bama, has had some issues. I mean, even, more recently, Bama against LSU, they lost Alabama won 20-14, but LSU had a shot at winning that game. And Bama's kind of just, slowly getting out there, they're still winning, but they're just barely doing it. They're not doing it in the, I think of a Bama fashion where they beat a team in the SEC like 50-7 or something. It's a little bit closer this year, which I think is kind of interesting.
Let's pull some Jordan-Hare Stadium magic.
Yeah, this is the time to do it. Bama's defense has been, pretty good. It's not the best Alabama defense that I've seen by any means. They've had their issues. The secondary isn't quite up to Nick Saban's standards, but hey, it's, for the most part, kind of doing its job. They have had some issues, but Bama's defense, when they're going, I mean, they're one of the best out there. I also did want to talk about one other kind of storyline I was thinking about. So Tank Bigsby right now, after having a fantastic game against South Carolina, has 940 yards rushing. Dad, I want to kind of get your thoughts on, do you think, in this game, he gets to that 1,000 yard mark?
I definitely do. He's been, Tank Bigsby has been the workhorse of our running back core, and I think no better time than the Iron Bowl for him to shine out like Bo Jackson used to do. I see a big game from him on Saturday, and the offensive line needs to make some holes from him. Just looking at Alabama's game against Arkansas last week, Arkansas at times got chunks of yards running the ball. So especially early in the game. So I see us needing to do that, get another really strong start. And as opposed to the last 3 games, let's finish.
Yeah, I think that should be the key. If there's any one message I hope that they're preaching to the players is finish. Like, I think that's one of the things that kind of gets to me is when a team doesn't finish. And the last 3 games, Auburn doesn't seem like they've finished, or at least finished well. And you can't do that against a good team. You're going to lose most times when you're not doing well in the second half of the game. And Auburn's second half of the game has, over the last 3 games, not been there. And even dating back to the 4 games ago against Ole Miss, kind of did the same thing. Kind of slumped off a little bit. Actually, not just a little bit, a lot. And that's what we get. We get some losses. So I think we got to fix some things there.
Coach Harson's philosophy of a 1-0 outlook every week, a 1-game season, plays really great into the Iron Bowl, because in a rivalry game, both teams have a lot to play for. I think Auburn's got a ton to play for, and we got to take advantage and play a full game, figure out how to play in the second half.
Yeah. Yes, we definitely do. I kind of want to transition into our next little topic about our Auburn's players to watch. Let's start out kind of doing the same format of doing offense, defense, and special teams players for Auburn. We'll start out with offensive players. Dad, who's your player that you're going to be watching on offense?
I think a combination. Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, and from the running back standpoint, our offensive line needs to be able to protect TJ Finley and give him time to operate, because he called him Bodini, but on a couple of plays at South Carolina, he managed to escape some pressure, but he doesn't have quite the wheels that Bo Nix has, and but I think the line is going to give an extra angry Tank Bigsby some openings to get a bunch of yards in this game. And also on the offensive side, I'm really watching the tight ends from and his compatriots, as well as John Samuel Schenker. I think Alabama's secondary is strong, but if we can get some 8-10 yard completions to tight ends and have Shed Jackson do his magic that he's done the last couple of games, he seems to have a real connection with TJ Finley. So I expect good things from the offense.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think we had mentioned it earlier. I hope the wide receivers. I mean, honestly, wide receivers are my key here. Seeing how they interact with TJ Finley, because I think TJ Finley did all right, but I think there's got to be that connection with TJ and the wide receivers in this game. And I think Tank, like you mentioned, is going to be playing just ears pinned back, angry. And if he does that, I think Tank could have maybe even a better game this week. I mean, Arkansas was able to run, and I think teams have been able to run against this Bama defense a little bit more than maybe years previous for an Alabama defense.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Let's talk about defensive players to watch for Auburn. Who are you going to be watching on defense for Auburn?
Again, I think it's a combination of players. To be successful, we've got to both contain the run and especially find ways to put pressure on Bryce Young at quarterback. One of my players that I think is going to shine this week Eku Leota transfer from my dad's alma mater at Northwestern University, not known for tremendous football players, but he's a great pickup for us in the transfer portal. And I think Eku Leota is going to have a great game with some tackles for loss and maybe a couple of sacks in combination with Chandler Wooten and Jacoby McLean and Tony Fair and some of the guys in the middle there to put some intense pressure and not give Bryce Young so much time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the key here for me is, and I said it before, I think Bryce Young is a different quarterback when he's got some pressure on him. If we can put a little pressure on him and consistently do that, I think you got a better chance of making Bryce Young throw an incompletion or better yet an interception. And how cool would it be if Auburn's able to get an interception or two on Bryce Young in this game and change momentum, get everybody excited and motivated to win this game. The player I'm going to be watching is Jacoby McLean. I think he's going to be a key one. Anytime Brian Robertson's running the ball, I want to see where Jacoby is meeting him at. Is it going to be, Jacoby's reading him well and hitting him in the backfield? And if so, I think we have a really good shot because that makes Alabama's have to rely a lot on the pass game and instead of running the ball. So I think that would be a key for me. Kind of honorable mention. I think defensive backs are kind of an unspoken. There's a lot of talented wide receivers for Bama that we need to stop. So I think that'll be kind of where I'm thinking. Let's talk about special teams. Who's your player to watch on special teams?
Special teams, although I do not wish for us to punt very many times, my player to watch is Oscar Chapman.
Yeah.
He was somewhat average this last week at South Carolina on limited opportunities to punt, but he's got to help us flip the field. If we're going to win this game, we've got to keep the score somewhat low, and flipping field position by the punter is huge. And as always, Alabama's got very talented punt returners, and he's got to kick it where they have limited opportunities to run the ball back. A lot of fair catches.
Right. I would absolutely love that. And I mean, just knowing where this Auburn's offense is at, I think we're going to punt a handful of times, and those are going to be key for Oscar Chapman to just boom it long, and we're pin them inside the 5-yard line, for example. I think that'll be key. I'm going to be watching Jarquez Hunter. Last week, I'd mentioned it on our last podcast. Jarquez had a couple big tackles on kickoff returns, but he's also, kind of been the guy that takes the kickoffs and returns them. And he's done pretty well with those. He's hitting the holes. He's, finding the seam. It's just a matter of, breaking one more tackle and, he could be off for the races. He's that type of guy, and we've seen it. What did he earlier this year? I think he set a rushing record for the longest touchdown run in Auburn history. He's got that top end speed. So we know, give him a little bit of seam and he's gone. So hope he can, maybe pull out one of those in this game.
I like it. Successful Iron Bowls are always predicated on the pick sixes, kick sixes, and kick returns are a big part of that too. So let's do it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our score predictions. Preseason, Jared had predicted Bama wins by 3 points. I predicted Bama would win by 10 points. Coming into this game with your backup quarterback, don't have your starting kicker, and maybe at this point we know if Kobe is coming back, but I think we just got some deficiencies on offense that I think we can overcome some of it, but I still don't think we come out with a win on this one, unfortunately. And I'm going to predict us losing. The line right now is about 19.5 points. Bama's way, but I think it's probably going to be like 17 points. I think it's a multi-score. Bama comes out and wins this. It would be nice if it was less, but honestly, I think 17 points is kind of where I'm heading. What's kind of your thought on how this game kind of plays out and the score at the end of this?
Sure. I mean, we've got certainly opportunities here with if we play better red zone defense than we did in the last game and hold Bama to field goals instead of touchdowns, cover the running backs better, and are able to stop the run like Arkansas did against them, like LSU managed to do as well, get pressure on their quarterback, Bryce Young. I think we've got an opportunity to continue some Jordan-Hare magic.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the homer side of me. The realistic side comes in that I think Alabama's defense is better than the credit they're getting. Georgia certainly overshadows them from a defensive standpoint, are getting all the press, but Alabama's got a top 10 defense yet. And until we can show we can do more than start a game fast and get a 28-3 lead or a 14-0 lead and then have the offense disappear. I've got to be realistic in this one. The line is around 20, and right now my prediction would be something like 38-17, something like that. Keeping it close at the half, and if the magic's going to happen, it's got to happen in the second half. And if we have a fifth straight game where the offense disappears in the second half, it's going to be a tough ending for the home team. But I have seen the Jordan-Hare Stadium magic, and until corrected, Auburn has won 3 out of the last 4 Iron Bowls at Auburn, and I will pray toward another one. War Eagle.
Yeah, I think it's going to need some extra prayers and hoping that we somehow have something up our sleeves here. It is good. I mean, in my view, allowing TJ to build that chemistry with the wide receivers, I think will help a lot when it comes to playing against Bama. It's an extra, some extra sets with his wide receivers in a live game. And if we can come out and put some points on the scoreboard, I think it could be anybody's game. I just kind of fear that our offense will have some issues, and if we can overcome those, I mean, we got a shot. All right, let's jump over. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, real quick. I think this Iron Bowl is going to be extremely special for our family, and that all of our immediate family, including son-in-law and daughter-in-law, including your bride, who I believe will be attending her first Iron Bowl in person. Is that right?
Yeah. She's been a lifelong Auburn fan, but never been to an Iron Bowl. She's been to plenty of other games. She's even been to the Deep South's oldest rivalry against Georgia a few times, but never been to an Iron Bowl. And I was really excited that we were able to get some tickets and can go to the Iron Bowl. And I did want to shout out my wife. I was asking her, she was actually asking me, so what do you think about the game? Do you think we'll win it next week? And I was like, honestly, no, I really don't. But my wife, she was like, I'm packing a roll of toilet paper. We're going to roll in the corner. I was like, I love this. I like
that positive attitude.
Yeah. When I'm usually more optimist, she was just like, I think we can do it. And I love that. So, hey, let's not have her bring her toilet paper for no reason. Let's get this win. Let's finish out with an Auburn fan perspective of the SEC. It's kind of where we put on our orange and blue sunglasses. So, Dad, put those on right now. If they weren't already, because we're Auburn fans, we're homers. But what kind of things did you necessarily see around the SEC this week? There's some, for me, one of the things that stood out was Missouri versus Florida. Missouri beat Florida 24-23 in overtime. And then consequently, the next day, Dan Mullen gets fired. And that's huge. I mean, I personally had this. I mean, I saw this like probably 6-7 games ago, but man, Dan Mullen, like, how do you feel about that? That, Dan Mullen goes down to Florida, makes Florida complete trash down there, and then leaves.
He had a decent record at Florida up until the last couple of years, including a recent appearance in the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
But the last couple of years, the trajectory of Florida football, both from recruiting and on the field, and some of the antics he has pulled as a head coach, the trajectory has been down.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I think Missouri's head coach, you had mentioned it to me, had an interesting ending to his press conference. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so I don't know if y'all remember last year, Dan Mullen dressed up as Darth Vader. It was Halloween, right? Yeah, it was Halloween. They were playing Missouri. He dressed up in his press conference, answered some questions as Darth Vader, had a lightsaber and all. And then Eli Drinkwitz didn't forget about this, of course. He this week, after beating Florida, at the very end of his press conference, he has a hoodie. He puts it over, looks like a Sith Lord, and then pulls out a lightsaber and said, "May the Force be with you." Literally walks off the stage, and I loved every second of that. I mean, hey, if you're gonna dish it out, I love that Eli kind of dished it back at him a little bit. So I just thought that was a little cool thing that the SEC, happening, even though I think the bigger storyline is obviously Dan Mullen getting fired, but yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I hate to say it. Dan Mullen might have been wise to stay at Mississippi State, where he was having great success at that level, but I think he got a little full of himself maybe somewhere along the way, and that spells trouble.
Right. And I honestly think Dan Mullen is a good coach. I mean, to get Mississippi State when he was coaching there up to where he got them, you're talking about Mississippi State here, who's never won a national championship. And he put them in contention while he was there. I think, from a coaching standpoint, I think he has the capability to do it. I think the biggest thing with me was Dan Mullen wasn't the best fit for Florida. And it became very, very evident that it just wasn't good for him. I think you put him at another, maybe another, big conference school, I think he could have some success because he's a good coach. But can he keep the team together? Because it seemed like Florida's had some issues just off the field and on the field. And that, I think that all kind of boils back to, your coach and how you kind of lead your team.
The Pirate coach who's at Mississippi State now came from Washington State. Washington State's got an opening now, so maybe Mullen goes there and can pull some antics out in rural East Washington.
Hey, that would be very interesting. Kind of flip the tables, completely different, recruiting up there. Your recruiting pool is way different than it is in the SEC. But hey, maybe that would be kind of interesting to see.
My guess is his paycheck will be quite inflated with his buyout from Florida for a while.
That's probably
he won't have to work.
Yeah, he won't have to go to a huge school, at least for the first few years. And I don't think a big school is kind of going after Dan Mullen, at least at this point. Let's also talk about a couple more games. This week was honestly not that great for games. I think everybody's kind of leading up to the last week, rivalry week, so they kind of schedule a lot of them. The Charleston Southerns, the Prairie Valley, the Tennessee States, the New Mexico State, and they weren't that great of games, to be honest. That is just kind of it was a meh day. Besides, the Missouri and Florida game we just discussed, Bama beating Arkansas. I thought that was a pretty decent game. They beat them only by a touchdown. Arkansas, from what I was watching, they were super physical, which, that's kind of been their MO this whole season. They want to be physical, and they showed up and played hard against Bama. They were not scared of Bama. And that's kind of cool to see from an Arkansas team that even a few years ago, I would have said, yeah, that game's going to be 70-0. If that was a couple of years ago, it just,
that game was closer than most people thought.
Right.
Even LSU's game against the Louisiana directional school, LSU only won 27-14.
Yeah.
So South Alabama scored early against Tennessee, and Tennessee ended up blowing them out.
Yeah.
At the end, but you can't overlook any of these schools you play. Auburn should know.
Oh yeah, Auburn should definitely know. And then really the only other one that I was kind of looking at, I mean, if you could say Ole Miss versus Vandy. Hey, Vandy put up 17 points. I mean, I don't know if that's much of a storyline. Ole Miss was held to 31 points. Yeah, that was about it. That was about it for the day this last week.
Great games on the slate this week.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, Texas A&M, LSU's a rivalry, Clemson, South Carolina, and topping it all off is the Iron Bowl, which will be exciting.
Yeah, definitely. There will definitely be some fun games this upcoming week. So I'm going to be going to the game, but I'm going to be recording all of them and probably coming back to watch some of these games and definitely keeping up with them even when I'm at Auburn. So it'll be exciting and definitely looking forward to going down to Auburn, spend some time with family. And hey, if we somehow come out with this win, I will go buy a ton more toilet paper and let my wife throw all of it because that would be awesome.
We will be celebrating and we will enjoy it no matter what. Yeah,
definitely. All righty. Any other kind of final thoughts about heading into Iron Bowl?
Let's do it. I just, it's going to take some Jordan-Hare Stadium magic and a pick six or a kick return or all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take a lot of prayer to make this one happen. But
yeah, that's true.
That's why they play the games, and glad it's a home game, and let's find a way to do as Coach Harsin says and finish strong.
That's right, and we need to put those words into action in this last week before we go into a bowl. All right, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me under my name at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of those.
My dad is on TikTok.
Marco Polo. Nice to have kids that rope you into being on all these things that I don't quite know how to operate, but hey, it's fun.
It is fun. And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.